Roll, roll call. Let's start with you, Jan.
Linda Ziedrich.
Rick Barnett.
Cindy Kirby.
Rod Sell.
Okay. Next thing is approval of the January 15 minutes. I hope you looked good at those because I wasn't here, so I don't know. They looked good to me, but like I said, I wasn't here.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, we are going to start with discussion city update, and boy, it looks like we got an update coming. So, Jason, you want to start us there?
Yeah, I'll make this short and sweet. We had a couple tree removals. Second Mary, the rotten tree on the north end of Williams, and one out on Mickey. Garbage truck started hitting it. It was leaning out into the road. So they're all taken care of. Stumps ground. Tree trimming's a little over halfway done. And that's been going good. And other than that, we've been hit pretty hard with trash on the trails in the parks. So the guys have been really busy taking care of that, but they've been getting it as soon as we get called on it. So other than that, everything's just business as usual.
Good. Thank you.
I have one update.
Yes.
So I was asked to talk with the city of Albany about armoring the bank at Cedar Lake on the North Shore Trail. They did respond to me, kinda. They agree that something needs to be done and they're gonna set a meeting, and that's where it's at now. So at least they're willing to discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, you bet.
Okay. So I think that I'm looking around. I see a bunch of people sitting at the back of the table, and I think this probably is part of the city updates. Is that right? Okay. You guys go for it, Brian.
All right, good afternoon. Excited to introduce you to our design team. The design team's prepared a fabulous kind of 1,000-foot view overview of where we're at right now with our planning level documents. And that's important to understand. So we're still in the planning phases. There's a lot of design and final insight to be incorporated into that design, but we wanted to bring to you this presentation, share it with you, show you what direction we're going in, hopefully get a little bit more feedback, and then we can roll into that final design and make a hard push so we can be ready to get shovels in the ground this summer still. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to some of the team members. I think you know who I am. I'm Brian Bandetta with Udell Engineering. To my left, John with the Satry Group. So John's a landscape architect, and he'll be helping with the spatial orientations and landscape design. To his left is Michael. Michael's with Agate Architecture. He's going to be the primary lead on the stage design. To his left is Heidi. She's with the Satry Group as well. She'll be a support designer with John. To her left is Alex, and Alex is also with the Satry Group.
He's taking notes too.
I didn't want to give him that direction. I'll let you give that direction. So with that, I'm going to step aside and let them take over. They've put together this fabulous presentation, and let them explain a little bit more detail to you.
Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, we have a PowerPoint presentation, as Brian indicated, and we have about 30 slides. And as Brian was pointing us in the direction, is we have a lot of detail to share with you. So even though we're in schematic, we wanted to bring a lot of information. But that being said, it's still schematic. So it's totally open for what we want out of this meeting to get feedback on. Are we going in the right direction? Are things working well? Is it spatially functioning? So I'll go through and start at higher altitude, go through the whole park, and then we'll work our way to the stage, and then Michael will take it over from there and go through some really nice schematics he's developed to give you an idea of really how this could be built. There's another consultant on our team, Josh, with Branch Engineering. He's the structural engineer, and he's been working with with Michael, and he's being held off because we're kind of working through the schematics, and once we have a direction, then he can start giving us some schematics on the foundation design. And then we have an estimator on our team too is actually on the landscape and civil, we can estimate what costs would be for construction, but the stage is much more complicated. So he's going to provide pricing for that to give us a better idea when it goes out to bid. Where are we? You know, what's the temperature? So I'll start the presentation. I think everyone knows this park and property probably much better than I do. And you've probably seen this conceptual plan or master plan, if you want to call it, for the whole park, which with all the improvements shown here, this is multiple phases of work as a field complex, 2 phases of parking, trail connections, and then a really highly developed stage, much more to show than what you've been using for the Strawberry Festival. The next slide is just kind of whiting out what could be a future phase. The way we understand it now, where the ball fields and one of the parking areas to the west would be a future phase with the parking to the east and the stage and the trail connections as part of phase 1. And then we'll talk more about this, but the stage area itself, which we've really spent a lot of time in the last several weeks trying to develop a real program, how it would work, how the grading would work, how we would accommodate restrooms, vendors. And actually, I'd like to point out Alex is a saxophone player, and he's in a local band in Eugene. And he's played in venues, kind of medium-sized venues throughout the state. And Alex has really been helpful to help us understand what are the requirements that you see with venues that come. What do they need? What are issues? And so that really played a key role in the programming for the stage. So I have a lot of renderings. We actually built the schematic in 3D. So we created it and then kind of ran it through this program, and I'll show a lot of slides. This is the plan you can see in kind of top-down view, 1,000-foot view. And this is kind of view from the southeast looking towards, this is what you could have for the completely built park, the ball field complex with the center structure, stage, seating bleachers. The phase 2 parking shows a little more complexity in phase 1 where we could have trees within the parking area and a little more definition. Trail connections, that brown trail would ultimately connect. We just didn't show it in the model. And we know you have a pretty robust trail system along the north edge of the park. So this would all tie into that. There's another view kind of from the southwest looking towards where the ball fields and stage are, which is really nice. The backdrop of, I don't know if it's a butte or small hill to the north. So really beautiful context for a park. Lower altitude view, you can see the phase 2 parking and the ball fields. And to the left, you can see an important part of phase 1 is getting access to the stage area. So we'll have an improved paved road. Brian's developing the stormwater system for that, water quality and storm control system. So that'd be designed and built with a multi-use trail connection. We understand that I think ODOT asking for a little more generous sidewalk off of our road frontage. So we're showing that.
No, that's through the city.
The
ODOT's
city.
gonna just review
Oh,
Highway 20.
gotcha. So we're showing a sidewalk improvements, frontage improvements to the road, which you don't have now, which would connect into the park. Another view of the ball field complex, and that's kind of looking southeast. And then flipped around view. So you're getting a better idea now of what we're proposing to see when the fields are built and how that music venue would actually be integrated into that. We've looked at a lot of other facilities in the state of Oregon to give us some feedback on what is being done in other communities. There's a Bimart facility. It's called Bimart down in Medford. And then there's one in Bedford, in Bend, which is that Hayden Homes? Hayden Homes. So we looked at those venues for scale, size, how many people they can accommodate, and we're going to share that in more detail here. So we're looking at the other ones and indications if we make the investment, if the city makes the investment to do this formal stage, it's much higher traffic. So we're showing these cross connects, the trails to the paved walks to the side, which connect to the stage. And in the center would be, what is it called, Alex? Like a communication hub?
It's the soundboard.
Soundboard, which actually we're talking about having a conduit system in place. So you have a permanent kind of duct bank. So when you run cables, you don't have to run them above the ground where people tripping on them and damaging them. So we're planning for that. The trail to the back with potential for trees, and then also locations for where you could have porta potties. I know you're planning to have wet restrooms in phase 2. But even if you had those, they wouldn't accommodate a venue that could have over 1,000 people. So we know you'll have portable restrooms. And we're actually showing locations where you could stage them in pavement if you wanted to in groups. So this kind of gives you a really nice view from the southeast corner looking towards the stage. And then to the back. The top view. And again, Michael, again, in more detail, but we're thinking about cost as we're doing the schematics. This could be I think a concrete stem wall with granular fill to bring it up to grade, keep the design simple, investing the money in the structure for lighting and sound. Tractor trailer access is really important, so we're definitely planning for that in the back for good accessibility for truck movements. And I think that's probably a good segue for the stage. Michael,
Thank you.
take it from here.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to start by saying thank you. This is truly a dream project for me. I would put projects in general into 3 categories. My bread and butter projects that my firm does 20 to 30 a year. I have projects that I'm really excited about, get a handful of those a year, and then every once in a while there is a dream project that comes along. For me and my firm, this stage and being part of this park is definitely a real dream opportunity. So I just wanted to start with expression of appreciation to your community.
In that note, I want to add, Michael, we are working on a park in Springfield, Arc of Lane County. And that's a totally adaptive used park. And it started with the idea of a small stage. And then it grew larger and larger to the point where they wanted a 2-story stage for venues with like nighttime movies and small music venues. Michael did the design of that. We pulled him in on that, and that became kind of the theme for the park. And when we talked about this project with Brian, we're like, oh, let's take what we did there and kind of step it up a little bit. So
That project is truly a feel-good project. It has so much good for the user group. This is a different kind of project where we could go and unwind and enjoy life, which these days we all need as much of that as possible. One of the overall design is a balance of several criteria. One is it has to be resilient. It has to last for decades and to have as minimal amount of maintenance as possible, okay? Other primary design consideration is it has to look and feel appropriate. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. But it also wants to have a connection to what I think got us here in the first place, which is the Strawberry Festival. And so one of the first very loosely handed gestures that I did is I had put in red text on the front wall of the stage, Cheadle Lake Park stage. Really, that's simply a placeholder of an idea. And really what I want to manifest as reality on that wall is really what's in your beautiful concrete landmark as I pull into town. And there's a bronze plaque that has just a beautiful motif of strawberries. And I'd like to do the inverse of that and essentially put into the forms of the pour, the concrete pour, a strawberry patch or strawberries themselves. And so even though this will be a multi-use facility that is attracting all different types of events and entertainment, I think it's always good to know that this place is here for a reason and not ever lose that fact. So that's one of the criteria. The other criteria is that let's just say I've done a lot of field research at concert venues around the Pacific Northwest. And some of them just truly don't have a sense of connection to the region that they're in. And so one of the things that was really important to my firm as we were going through the initial like brainstorming concepts is it has to have an expression of timbers. And so that was a primary motivating force because we're in Western Oregon, we're all wood communities to one extent or the next. And so an expression of that, even if it's gestural and less actually like functional and structural, was really important, okay?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, can you please go forward to actually your renderings? There's one in particular that I'd love
And,
to
yeah.
kind of park on for a
You can
moment,
always come
please.
back to these if you want to.
Let you know when to stop. Oh, that's a good place to stop. There's a little lag on your side. It'll come up in a moment. There we go. So what I wanted to do from a design perspective is that I wanted to make sure that the beautiful backdrop of the trees and then the butte beyond is the primary backdrop of the stage. For example, if you were to look at the Hayden Homes venue, they've put metal siding on about 40% of the back of the stage and then have a smaller aperture of an opening. And I've come to learn in my discussions with Flip Flop Sounds that that aperture and that the metal siding is actually ridiculed in the music industry, music wide, because no one really understands it. I've seen a lot of shows at the Cuthbert Amphitheater, and when it's a twilight on a summer's evening and you can see the performers and see the trees beyond, there's a connection that is to nature that I think is really important. This site has that, and so trying to capitalize on that instead of covering it up is really important. At the same time, these days, performers and production companies are using large projection screens on the back and all over the stage, actually. And so one of the things that the stage design needs to be mindful of is being able to accommodate that. So we're going to have approximately 15 different points of connection in the upper roof structure that will be able to take a point load of between 5,000 and 6,000 pounds each. It's robust in terms of the live and dead loads that the upper structure needs to accommodate, which is one of the reasons why what I call the trussed columns are so robust. Okay?
That's the vertical?
The vertical. Okay. So because this is an all-weather structure, it incorporates materials that basically can get wet and be resilient. And so the primary structure is galvanized steel and concrete. The roof is a cross-section working from top down of a standing seam metal roof that will last 50 to 60 years. Then underneath that, there's some underlayments and sheet goods. I won't get into all that stuff, but then underneath that is a galvanized steel structural pan deck. Okay, so there's a structural diaphragm that is giving us various types of structural resistance. Then there is a steel sandwich, is what the engineer and I are calling it. And that steel sandwich is doing two things. Number one, it's picking up the primary structural load and tying back to upper structural features, but it's also allowing those points of connection because steel works really good in tension for all those point loads. Then underneath that is the pretty wood that you see. And so because I'm wanting the wood to really pop and be a dominant architectural feature, everything else is painted a matte black, so the wood really pops. The wood members that I plan to specify they're from the Roseboro Lumber Mill. Some of you guys may be familiar with it. They make a pressure-treated stick that is called the X-beam. And when it's pressure-treated in their, what they call high clear, honestly, it is tough to tell if it's pressure-treated or not. They look so, they still have an orangey yellow hue to it, okay? Okay, so we have these materials that then land on a concrete stage. That concrete, as John described, will essentially be a series of stem walls and then fill with some pretty significant footings underneath the trussed columns. One of the things that we were looking at as a design team early on was functionality, and not just functionality of the stage proper, but functionality of all of the adjacencies around the stage and how those adjacencies interact with the landscape architecture of the park itself. And so because we've gone back many, many years, we work very efficiently with each other as a design team. And so we had design charrettes and we would work through things and we would bounce it off. And so what you're seeing, at least in the amphitheater, is really a collection of multiple cycles of us just being collaborative. And it was a lot of fun. Can you go to an image looking at the front of the stage,
Sure,
please?
yeah. Let's find it.
So one of the primary drivers that I was trying to make sure was an outcome of the stage design was that when you were looking at the stage as an audience member, that the proportions were right. And there is no magic or prescriptive way of you design a stage this way and you design the upper apparatus that way. There's nothing like that. So I went back to what is called the golden ratio. The golden ratio is also known as the golden rectangle. Basically, it is something that you've seen many times in your life, and I'll describe it in a simplistic diagram I'm sure you've seen, where it's a picture of a nautilus that has a series of rectangles drawn over it, and there's like a squiggly line that goes to the center of the nautilus. That is the golden ratio. And basically what it means is that the proportion of the ratio is 1. So 1 being the vertical or the short side of the rectangle to 1.618. And that is the aperture of the stage itself. So if you were in the stage looking straight at it, the rectangle that's defined is the golden ratio. It's really, really close to it. And what that ultimately provides is sort of harmony in the design, and that it just feels balanced. And that was a really important sort of it had to be intrinsic into the design itself. Lastly, and most importantly, Flip Flop Sounds, who has provided production assistance with the Strawberry Festival in the past. I've had a preliminary, pretty in-depth discussion with Courtney of Flip Flop Sounds, and he shares a commonality with me of this is a dream project for him. And he has agreed to provide I don't want to characterize it as pro bono, but definitely he said, whatever you need, I'm willing to help. And so what we decided is, like the structural engineer, we want to use that structural engineer's time and resources wisely. Same with Courtney of Flip Flop Sound. So once we have a feedback from this body, our plan is to engage with Flip Flop Sounds and essentially go through this entire amphitheater design and get as much feedback and incorporate as much of the knowledge that he's willing to provide into the design. That will ultimately be the package that goes to the cost estimator that my firm has retained to provide cost estimation services on the stage and the various systems associated with the stage. Thank you.
And on that note, we have a couple of renderings that are not fully lit to the level you would have for a venue, but Alex was playing around 3D, just trying to give some feedback of what the character could be like for a night venue. I mean, Michael is hit at the structure having the resiliency to have a lot of lighting, have a lot of sound, wind protection, rain protection, all of that. So it's a structure that when it's not occupied, like what we're presenting here in this rendering, this is sound check. And a group's coming in and they're setting up. So the structure, it helps because the park is going to have this activity when the Strawberry Festival is not running. And a lot of parks, you've seen that they want to design the stages to have that form and function that when it's not in use, it's a landmark for it. So that's what we were trying to present with the preliminary design and the preliminary layout for the stage area. And that's pretty much everything we have. We'd be happy to go through presentation and answer any specific questions you guys may have.
You going or am I going?
Okay, committee, it's your chance, and I just know she's just dying to ask some questions.
You know me so well. So my name is Cindy Kirby. I am actually the association president of the Strawberry Festival.
Oh, fabulous.
I've been involved with the Strawberry Festival now for 11 years. I'm actually who connected you with Courtney. So this project is very near and dear to my heart. So I have a few comments and questions about some of the renderings of it. So the Strawberry Festival, I mean, it sounds like you know part of the history of that and how that's all come about. And so the Strawberry Festival, we fill the entire park. I mean, because we have a lot going on. So the bushes that you have making that half circle would not work for the Strawberry Festival. We couldn't use the stage. Because when we have a concert or when our nights of the concert, we want to draw in as many of the people that are there at the festival as we possibly can. Because what we're doing is we're trying to split the crowd, if not, because there's a bunch of kids that want to be in the carnival, and then we've got a whole bunch of other people we want to pull to the music to kind of give the carnival a break, necessarily, kind of even that out. So we need to be able to see the concert and hear the concert and interact with the concert from the rest of the park. So it's really important that that access is there and we're not limited in the size and the amount of people that can do it. And I think that's going to be true for any other events that want to use the stage because it takes away the limitation of how many people you can get in there. And that's going to be really important as we move forward and try to utilize the stage for other events. So that was my first kind of feedback on that. And then how tall is the stage in comparison to, is there a gradient in the seating? How far back can you be and see the stage? Does that, the people
There
on the
is a
stage?
gradient that there's 5 feet of elevation change between the back to the stage.
Okay. And then how
Um,
tall is the stage?
I don't remember offhand if you could go to one of those sections,
Oh, yeah.
John.
Yeah, let me do that. We got an elevation view
Yeah.
there. Showing about 4 feet, 4.5 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, but can you read that number?
Well, you have grade of 0, top of stage is 4 feet,
Okay.
top of slab, yep. And then the clear height is about 40 feet, top of truss is 44.
Okay.
You know, you bring up some comments we were just talking about at Brian's office before, flexibility of accommodating more people. And so we were doing takeoffs of like a person, how much a person would occupy, and we're getting in the maybe 1.5 to 2 grand range, 2,000 people.
Mhm.
That back row of trees, we always thought they would just be trees, nothing underneath. But then we thought, well, if the trees weren't there and that area was additional like general admission, we could add maybe another 500 more and try to keep it open. So we've been thinking about how we could grade the site and try to keep the grading down where it can spill out and kind of grow. We know the future ball fields are proposed to be pretty close. So we didn't really show hard improvements getting beyond where that ball field would be, but there's some room to grow that and grade it in a way where it kind of flows into the park, the way you described it. And I think we could work on that design and do that.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea where you could be on the top end for people saying, I'm there for the music venue, like I'm there?
Well, I think that depends on, how the stage is built and how many people, what we can bring in. I mean, the Strawberry Festival is, I have the numbers, I think I sent you the numbers. We bring in about 30,000 people for that 4-day event. I mean, the goal, I think, for the park is that we can have big concerts there, and I don't think it's going to be unusual, or the hope is to have 20 or 30,000 people in there and be able to pull. The thing we worry about now is parking. Um, and that's, I think, going to be a concern for anybody using the park, is having enough parking to accommodate the amount of people that we want to accommodate. And so, I mean, especially with the Strawberry Festival currently, I don't know if you've seen any of the maps, actually, I think I brought one. I may not have.
The program maps that you
No.
have for it?
The map of the actual festival, how we do it. No, I didn't bring one. So currently, right now, when we have a concert, we have the stage is set about midway between where you have it now and that path that goes up and down. And then we put all of our vendors in the square that you have of grass, and then we have food vendors where there's parking lot. So anybody that is in that grassy square back to midway, that's full of people for a concert. So that's quite a bit of area that we fill with people. And they can all watch the concert, they can all hear the concert, they all can be involved with what's going on at the stage. So we have award ceremonies, and I can see that this stage would be used for more than just concerts, I mean, in theory. So I would think that we want to make sure that we don't limit ourselves as much as possible. I mean, that would be the beauty of that park. Have any of you guys actually walked around at the park and been out there? You really should. The beauty of that park is you have this really beautiful fairway of green grass. It's beautiful. And the comment that we've gotten the last several years at festival from the entertainers that have come in from Nashville and all over the country has always been, they stand on the stage and like, this is a beautiful park. This is such an awesome venue. And I don't want to lose that. It's so important to what we've built already out there that I would hate to lose that. So I guess that's my main feedback, is just try to figure out a way to still incorporate what we already have and what we've already put into that park and what we're doing. I'm not on board with the baseball fields. I'm just going to make that on record. I know, but it's like.
So you asked about the grades that we were.
Mhm.
visualizing?
Yeah.
Line with what you were thinking?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that if you're clear back by that path, you can see the stage. And the other thing is, a lot of events are going to fence in the venue. They're going to put a fence up, temporary fence, hopefully maybe a partial permanent fence eventually. Especially like for the Strawberry Festival, we fence the whole thing. So it's $20,000 worth of temporary fencing that we bring in to fence. So making sure that we can kind of fence things off and where the fence is going to go is going to be important, because we don't have, and I know that it'll be probably pretty common in Lebanon, you pay an admission to get into the event, but we don't charge separate for the concerts. So if you charge separate for the concerts, then you want to fence in just the concert area. But for this park, we want to make sure that we can kind of fence in the whole thing and make it still work. So that's another thing that I want to make sure we keep in mind, is how we would fence it. And if we're putting trees or bushes, it's going to make that complicated.
Reminds me of the Lane County fairs they have at the County Fairgrounds in Eugene. They have a big stage, a small stage, and I don't know if they have tickets for that, but it's basically part of the fair. So you can hear music, do other activities, get food,
Yeah.
and have the opportunity to have both. And you pay to get into just one event.
Right, you paid $10 to get in, and that's pretty common in the festival kind of arena of festivals, that you pay just a basic flat fee. And for us, it's $10 to get in, and you can do anything you want once you get inside the fence. The other part of that is alcohol. Because we have, Oregon Beverage comes in and they are just, you can get beer, wine, drinks anywhere in the festival as long as it's fenced in. And that's, alcohol is money for a lot of festivals. So a lot of events and festivals are going to have that. They're going to want to have that. They're going to want to be able to do that. And they're going to want to be able to do it for the least amount of money. I mean, they're going to pay a certain amount of money to rent the park, and then they have to the expense of everything else. So, I mean, as it is with the stage, you're saving 25 grand, 30 grand right there, but still something to think about.
So right now, when you run the Strawberry Festival, is the stage more in this area here?
No, it is, it's really hard for me to,
And about where third base is on that field.
yeah, sure. Ask the baseball person.
Right here?
Yeah, it's here, I can show you.
Is that third base for second base? Yeah.
So we set the stage, it's right about here, but it's in the middle of that.
Right in here.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's between, it's halfway between these pathways.
Okay.
So they look straight down to all of this greenery, which this is still. Oh, yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I can stop sharing and you can put it on screen. You want to do that? Let me do. I'm gonna, how do I stop share? Stop share right there, the big red button. Yeah. Okay.
And we know
There you go.
there's a lot more discussion to have about.
Yeah. So,
Lagging with the committee probably several times before we.
yeah, yeah, I see. So you can see the back, the yellow line that goes all the way around, that's our fence. And then the stage is the brown box.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So that north-south blue line is the proposed Park Road we show, which is kind of on the edge of the property.
Yes.
And everything to the left is off-site and you,
yes.
it sounds like with your venues being so large, even with the two improved parking areas, you're still going to have to talk to the farmer and use that field for,
Oh, we know.
yeah.
So does he.
So does he, trust me, unfortunately. And we currently, we bring people in on the train. So the train picks them up here and takes people out.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, you can see the stage at the top, the brown,
The brown square is where
little
the
brown
stage
square,
is.
that's our stage, yeah.
Okay.
So you're looking straight down.
Through the food vendor courts and all that
Mhm.
stuff. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
That's good.
Would you be able to provide us this? I think
Oh,
this
yeah.
would be really
Yeah, I did this map, so I can give you whatever you need. So the gray pathway that goes up that says V3, there's an electrical vault right there. That's kind of where you guys have a cross.
Yeah.
That's about where that cross is. That kind of helps orient you a little bit of where it's at.
So there's some similarity in scale, but how the future ball field interacts with it is something I think we have to talk about.
Yeah.
Make sure we have the position right. It's not just the stage, it's how you would set up vendors and use that area, because we'll still have that big square area that we could show in the park, but how does that connect to the stage?
Right, right. And I just want to make sure that, I mean, I know that the Strawberry Festival is not the only festival that lays out similar to this. So I just want to make sure that for the future of the park, that we accommodate as many of those type of events as we possibly can.
So in general, do you?
Well, I know that we talked previously about the space behind it, and I don't know that we've talked more about making sure there's room to turn a truck around back there. That would be the biggest thing, is making sure we have enough room behind it to get a vehicle around and turn a vehicle around and that kind of stuff. Beyond that, I think it's fine. I mean, you want to keep it far enough back that you can use it the best you can.
We also wanted the audience to be orthogonal to the butte and the tree line beyond. Initially, we were playing around with having the stage in the northwest corner of the site, sort of like almost facing home plate of the adjacent ball field. But we realized that then when you are an audience member, you are sort of looking at everything in the horizon line on an angle, and that just didn't feel appropriate.
Plus you're looking into the sun, kind of.
Well, that was also it.
Yeah,
We were really
yeah.
concerned about a summer's show, sun going down, and you're like, the band is in silhouette because of their backlit from the sun.
Yeah.
So our position is similar to what you're doing for Strawberry. We push this farther north because that stage is pointing south. I
Yeah.
don't know if this annotation would work, but you do have these areas, I'm drawing here, I don't know if you'll see
Yeah, you
it,
can see it.
that can be part, when I think of the Strawberry Fest, areas you can use. There is the issue or the interaction with the ball fields I think we're going to have to talk about.
And the ball field might be.
Right.
If the ball field's not there and we took that row of trees out, the influence area of the stage and the food is similar to what you have now.
Yeah, which I think is realistic for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And the stage facing that direction and not being at an angle has been, we've put the stage in lots of different angles, and that has definitely been the best, where it's
South.
literally north and south, yeah.
So what about seeing if we can't fit the third field on the southeast corner of the property where there's a large open area right now? Is that viable from?
I would love that. It would be much better for the rest of it, but I don't know if that
Possible
fits.
from a grading perspective?
It's just the dream and concept was a center hub, sessions in the middle, everybody interacting, but we can look and see if we could reorient and try to get the fields in a different location. So that space was opened up.
Well, here's
that we're
one
using
thought.
for now.
If you flip that field, you mirrored it over from the north.
Right, there you go.
And then this is basically open activity area. It takes this open area you had for the Strawberry Festival and just makes this one big,
Mhm.
large zone that you could have. I don't know what the implications are for engineering or any of that, but
There's
It's
some
easy to
things that
draw
would
on
have
the
to be
PowerPoint.
relocated, But I think I would defer to over the engineering.
Doesn't preclude that use.
it's true.
At least the majority of it is.
Yeah.
Is there any like fencing or netting or anything on the,
There will be on the backstops,
Mhm.
but I think our thought was the outfield fencing would be removable.
so the other thing that comes up that we've discussed, so I've spent a lot of time with Homeland Security discussing the security of our event and making our event a SEER event and getting that all kind of scheduled, at this venue. And the other concern would be making sure that we don't have bushes or traps or places where if there's an active shooter that people can get trapped. And that would be a concern about having like where we have the trees and where we have, just making sure that we have a really good, clear line of sight for those type of things, because in reality, those things are gonna become more and more important. And I'm happy to, if you wanna send me a picture of this, I can send it to the contact at Homeland Security and ask them if he has any like major concerns that he sees. They've been, and there might be things that we need to think about, like putting boulders where we have parking people coming in that we can strategically place so people can't drive into a crowd and things like that. Because that'll be really important moving forward for make sure that the event is as safe as possible for large quantities of people.
I don't know how to get rid of my annotation. There's one thing too, as landscape architects, if you give us the opportunity to put trees in, we'll put trees in. But there's a lot of flexibility in this, just looking at the design. I think what Michael was getting at, and I know Alex and Heidi in the design, if there's trees to the back and the butte, you could flank that, but those trees could move farther away to give a better, call it crime prevention or safety line of sight. So there's a lot of flexibility with the vegetation where we can move that out and give more openness to it. The influence of the ball fields and the stage, you could, as mentioned, they're all turf, so you can overflow into it. It's going to be more grading. So we can give a nice slope that goes up slightly up to where that kind of blue line is, or a little bit before, where it's kind of pitching towards the stage. But as we get into the ball field, that has its own grading requirements. But essentially, it'll just have to come up and then slope off and be level. So it could go out into the area, you could use it. I know there may be concerns about wear and tear on the field, but if you're careful and keep the heavy traffic off of that, it could just flow into that and have no impact, and you could use, as we indicated, this whole field area and the stage and that square all for Strawberry Festival and not lose anything that you have.
Yeah, and I think some of the trees that you have along the path that goes vertical, we might want to consider some of those because that again blocks your line of sight. And I definitely think there should be some discussion about the vegetation just with maybe the police department and Homeland Security, just about the safety and security and where, because, you want to plan for the worst case scenario, even though you hope you never have it. But as common as it's getting, I just feel like we should be planning on that. And lighting is really important, and I don't know, I'm sure you guys have it figured out, but we're definitely gonna wanna make sure there's lighting that can be turned on when a concert's over, so that people can get out safely to their vehicles and get out of the park safely. And ADA, I don't know that did you have an ADA seating area in that park seating area?
Oops, let me go.
Because that would be another thing we need to make sure is that we're meeting that,
The code requires it.
yeah. Making sure there's a place for those people to sit and enjoy the
Am I still
concert.
sharing? Share again here, give me a sec. Yeah, we're definitely thinking of accessibility for people who could park and be directly by the stage. We weren't showing wet restrooms now in the stage area, but we were showing, give it a second here to catch up. You could have a lot of porta potties either on the back edge or all along this multi-use path. So you could have accessible parking here, pretty considerable accessible parking. And then also overflow parking, whether it's people who are there for security or part of the band that's set up. So kind of localized parking there. I think we got attracted to that corner because it was kind of saying if we push that hardscape, the circulation and the truck access to the back edge, we can use as much as the park as possible and give us a permanent paved area, which I think we're working towards for that. But accessibility has been designed with the whole thing. I think we have a ramp integrated into the stage. Yep. So we have a ramp for equipment
Yeah.
besides accessibility. We know that's important. Multiple tractor trailers. We are showing in the back a future location if you wanted to have wet restrooms and offices for a venue. So if you have more and more music venues, they like the opportunity to have a place where they can go out of the sun, have their
Right.
own bathrooms.
So we usually bring in, Strawberry Festival usually brings in 3 to 4 RVs that are parked back there, so they're usually fifth wheels. And then we have in our backstage, and then we also have a bathroom trailer.
The fancy
So we have all of
bathrooms.
that backstage, plus there has to be room for someone like Jody Messina, who brings in a big bus to get it turned around and get out.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the really important thing, is those bigger singers, they come in those big buses and trailers attached to them with all their gear, and you have to be able to turn that around and get it out. So we just want to make sure that it's far enough forward that that can happen, even if there's 3, 4 fifth wheels back there that are being used for dressing rooms.
I think we're going in the right direction to have a lot of flexibility back there for tractor trailers, bus, with the band, service vehicles, to have a lot of turning movements. Having, I call them fancy bathrooms. So if you have the kind of trailer restrooms back there, room for a couple of those. If you had a pavilion set up, so it's becoming a nice staging area back there to work with. And then lighting, we've talked about that. I don't know how far we're getting into that. We're lighting the road.
And and making sure that they can get, which you have plenty of concrete there, they can get from the parking to a place to watch the concert without having to be up against the stage. which
Say
there's
that
trails
again.
and stuff there, so that's fine.
Do you say that again to get from?
So if you have somebody in a wheelchair that's coming from the parking to be able to go watch the concert, but not be so close to the stage they can't see it. So we want to be able to have them a spot that they can be back away from it, but still enjoy the concert, if they're in a wheelchair.
Well,
Or a
that
walker or
intermediate
something
walk,
like that.
That intermediate walk where the
Yeah.
soundboard is, that will have
Yeah,
basically little like coves or alcoves where
Pullouts.
there would be additional seating.
okay, yeah.
yeah, that's a good point, because I've seen accessibility where they're right on the stage and they're
Mhm.
seeing the venue like this the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think restrooms, porta potties are a pretty important part of these
Mhm.
venues, and we're just showing these large hubs. I think we're showing the potential of 36 just in these little nodes, but they could be lined along the multi-use path. There could be a lot, and we know with music and alcohol and food,
Yeah.
you need direct access. So do you have any idea where you are in the range when you have porta potties? How many do you have?
How many we have? Oh, we have 115 or something like that.
You do?
And
Okay.
we would never put them behind there because that's the line of sight for the stage.
Good
So we would
point.
always,
Okay.
we always put them along the edge.
Okay.
You put them where they're easy to find, but they're out of the way and nobody sees them. You know, it's that balance.
You
But it's
don't see
anywhere
'em
from,
unless you're looking for 'em,
that's
yeah.
right. We do anywhere from 100 to 150 depending on the event.
Well, we started to talk about that because when you get a group of them, you do get smell, so you don't want them too close. So if they were moved out, would you consider having drink vendors closer to the stage there? Do you do that for Strawberry? Because
We have an alcohol vendor that's fairly close to where the stage is. But we put our porta potties, we not only think about out of sight, out of mind, but they have to get in to clean them twice a day during the event. So
Right.
they bring their big trucks in and they pump them. So you want to be able to put them someplace where they can get into them without distracting from the
access.
event. But we do have drink vendors and stuff. There's usually alcohol sales, so somewhere close to the stage.
Okay.
That connectivity, vehicular connectivity is actually already incorporated into the design from that westerly access road into the various sort of paths that go into the venue.
Yeah. The other thing that a lot of events will have, that a lot of events do, is they have a VIP area that's usually close to the stage that's off. So where you have all the trees on the bottom side there, if we didn't put trees there, they could set up a tent and have a VIP area. That's really common at festivals and events, because like their sponsors and stuff want to be close enough to the stage to watch the concert, but they want special privileges. We put up a 40 by
Right in there.
a
Okay.
40 by 100 tent at festival just for our sponsors. That is right next to our stage. So that's also pretty common.
Yeah, there's a lot of, if you filter out all the trees we put in, there's a lot of nice areas right around that stage that are good grades that you could use for programming.
Yeah. And that'll be something that events look for when they want to use the stages, if they have a good place to have their VIP tent. And it's usually they put up a big tent and because they want cover, especially we live in the Willamette Valley, so they'll want someplace they can put up a tent and have their VIPs go.
Out of the sun.
Mm-hmm. Out of the sun, out of the rain.
And the Strawberry, what time? Is it spring?
We're the very first weekend in June.
So you could
So-
be very wet and muddy.
Oh, we have been rained out recently. We still have PTSD about that. Yeah, so it gets pretty wet.
Okay, other committee members, are you?
Sorry,
pretty
I'm
much
done.
there, Cindy, okay. No, that's fine. You got a lot of good stuff to add. Other committee members have any thoughts?
I'd
Rod?
like to talk a little bit about the connectivity again, and I understand that there's going to be a walkway put along Wyrick from the soccer fields all the way around to the park. And you had a little bit of that on one of your drawings. I think I saw a walkway in front of the park on Wyrick. And
10-foot multi-use path.
that was the question. How wide?
Yeah.
Good.
But it's just in
Great.
front of the park property.
Well, for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brown path is
Could I ask you to go to that front elevation of the rendering of the stage?
like a front view of the stage?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see here.
That's the rear.
Oh, is that the rear? Okay.
Shows the
That's right.
right stuff there.
Side view, so if I go up,
And it can be one of the animations.
there you go. That's the true elevation, the front of the stage.
Well, a few things concern me. Number one, it looks like a ladder that we're gonna have people climbing on each column. Because this
Could
place
use
won't,
that as a ladder, yeah.
this place is open to the public, so.
Hmm.
The other thing, when I was looking at the actual rendering, have we thought anything about bird treatment or way to, because it looked like one giant bird nest to me.
Bird
So,
control
I
measures.
know what you're getting at, and
Yeah.
to an extent, that's gonna be unavoidable. The only thing that you really could do, aside from putting a mesh that the production company would have to interact with during each setup, which can get a little fussy, is essentially hard lid the underside wi- of the steel support structure itself, and then just have essentially steel tabs that come through. And those would be the points of connection. We could absolutely do that. It just has an effect.
What would the production, so, to put like a
Tie
screen
off
in
and
the
stuff,
back?
yeah.
Don't
Well-
they have like those bird spikes?
The bird spikes will work on essentially on a horizontal surface, but I'd be sort of ill-inclined to do that because then there's so many horizontal surfaces, it'll start to look sort of spiky everywhere. So we're so early in the schematic design, I think I'd like to think
Yeah.
about your concern and see how that can be incorporated in a smart way without having a dramatic impact on the.
Because it will be a mess if we don't.
Well, as we know, they go even to the gravel and they make nests underground.
But, and related to climbing, that's a really good point, because they're really attractive, but I think we could do an ornamental lower screen with maybe a service door. So you just can't, it's 8 feet up, you can't get up to it. And that can have a quality to it too, maybe a strawberry pattern or something on.
Sure.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's a great
Yeah,
catch.
I could absolutely
Yeah.
wrap the lower, I could wrap the whole trussed column if I want to with there's various types of perforated steel mesh out there. I'm more concerned about your comment about the nests and there being bird nests up in the structure, the roof structure itself.
Yeah.
And that's the one that gets a little tricky.
Up under here, like in the
Yeah.
cross members, yeah.
Yeah, but we'll put some thought into that and see if we can come up with something that's efficient and smart.
Jan, you
I
have
know it
anything?
has a roof, but there's still going to be a lot of water on the stage if it rains. How do you remedy that? Mop buckets?
So the stage will have a very mild slope to it, and essentially, it's called, it'll be a surface sheet flow. And so I don't want to have any drains in the middle to where water's collecting where any of the equipment is. But my current thinking is that the water would basically shed to the north, essentially the backside of the stage.
Well, I think you're bringing up a point too. The structure is so tall. You're going to get wind blow rain in there. And I don't know if there's a certain design height that you have to go to.
No,
No?
that's just part of entertainment. There's no, the only way around that is what would be considered a clamshell. So the Pacific Northwest really doesn't have any clamshells that you would see, for example, in the Midwest or on the East Coast. But I'll just give you an example of one. If you were to Google the Saratoga Performing Arts Center in New York, that is a traditional clamshell. And they are all-weather events where if you are on this under the clamshell, you are fully protected from the elements. The issue with those designs, aside from them being way more expensive than something like this, is that it really affects sightlines. So, it's
It probably affects sound too, because they come down around.
it,
the
it
back.
has acoustic implications. Sometimes the acoustic implications are really good because you're helping to cup the sound and it projects further. But in our case, this is truly, just it's a rain or shine event, which that's how most concerts are. And unless there are really high winds or any lightning, the show goes on, and that's pretty typical.
So are you putting, and I know you mentioned something about the lines in the ground for the sound booth. Is there going to be some kind of channels on the stage that are covered for their lines that are on the stage for their guitars and stuff?
It's typically not. Typically, it's
So they just-
all just right on the surface, and the roadies, like, I mean, they literally
They-
tape it down,
they
and
tape-
they'll
okay.
use reflective day glow tape, so it's highly visible.
But we would have a utility trench from control underground, maybe with grates that goes into the stage and comes up through the stage with grates. And then from there, you're basically on grade, something like that, Alex?
Yeah, and so one of the primary lessons of, it was part of the introductory discussion I had with Courtney, is you really don't want to be pulling the wire that goes from the stage to the soundboard. And he highlighted an example of this past summer, a major touring act was going through the Bend Amphitheater, and they were setting up, and it was the day of the show. And because they have to pull the wire, it's technically called fishing the wire, it snapped the fiber optic cable. And it's a fiber optic cable that's not something you could easily replace. And so the points of connection don't receive a standard copper cable. And so it was a major pickle, and it was very expensive to remedy. And so the way I just characterized it with Courtney, I was like, so we have basically sort of layers of intensity of how to approach this. Layer one being the most expensive and the smartest, which would be a continuous concrete trench. That concrete trench has then a series of removable lids all along the entire trench. That's more costly, okay? We have a solution, which is ultimately a smart solution, which is going to end up in the proposed design. That is that first option. The next option, which was my idea, was, well, what if we basically just have like access holes 10 feet on center? And while that is helpful because you're able to pull or fish that line at a 10-foot on center interval, you're still doing that same action of stretching out this line when it really wants to get laid in place as it occurs in the trench. And so
Open trenches.
so the open trench, but in speaking with Brian, what he had his civil engineer hat on, and it was, let's just put a path that goes right down the center of the venue from the soundboard to essentially the floor in front of the stage. And on one side of that path is the actual trench for the sound lines. And so that's ultimately what we're going to put into the proposed document. That is a smart approach that's ultimately resilient. And these, each hatch cover, of course, would need to have a vandal-resistant apparatus for it.
Key lock or something, yeah.
Jan, do you have anything else? Linda?
Yeah, first I want to thank you for putting trees in the parking lot. About this picture here, I have to ask some stupid questions, but I just need to know. Those black boxes that look like speakers, are those speakers?
They are, and it was more of just like us having some fun to show what one potential setup could be.
But there will be a setup like that, and I'm wondering if those speakers will get put away somewhere between concerts.
Typically, the house doesn't supply the speakers, the house being the music venue. The individual performing act will bring their own sound equipment typically.
Okay. And the two things that look like hanging file cabinets?
Those are speaker stacks.
Okay. So are those permanent then?
No, same thing. The city might provide the motor but then the motor comes down, picks them up and goes up. It's called a line array. It's just kind of what they do nowadays.
Wow.
So those are, what the design on our side accommodates basically outriggers. And those outriggers are just simply points of connection. Some acts will have a large banner flanking each side of the stage, and then behind those banners are speaker stacks. Some will just have speaker stacks. Some won't do anything and just keep it open. It's truly, we want to make sure that we have all of the primary functional elements that this venue is going to require to attract the type and caliber of artists that you guys are looking to attract. Those being one of the functional elements they will be looking for.
Those are really common these days for the most part. They do 'em. Anything else, Linda?
Well, there's one other thing that we've talked about before. It's not a question for you guys, but we keep talking about these ball fields that will come in the future. And I keep wondering, is there demand for baseball, more baseball fields in Lebanon, or can we expect there to be in 10 years? Or is that just an idea?
Yeah, I don't know. I just got a couple things. I'm gonna go fast. But just as a piece of this, my professional life, I spend trying to tell landscape architects not to plant as much stuff as they want to plant. So
Good luck with that.
keep that in mind.
Are you successful in that endeavor?
Sometimes. Yeah. Weights and points of connection, I thought that was a good idea, to be able to handle the weight on the stage. Wondering about the security is a big deal, and Homeland Security is big into that, and it's getting bigger all the time. The bird's nest thing, that's a good thought. One of the things that I do is I'm responsible for a stage in a nearby community, and the birds get into that. Dimensions of the stage, talked about that. Flip-flop sound, I've worked with Courtney, that's a good place to be. Looking into the sun, you answered that one. That's a good thing. The removable lids, and like you're talking about for the snake, is a really good idea. We put them in Albany, and it's really been a good thing. So on that. And that, unless you want to, want me to argue with landscape architects some more, that's all I got. So, thank you.
Covered that one.
Anything else? You guys got anything else?
Now,
Thank you
as
so
part
much.
of the presentation, we do have a preliminary plant list that we're putting together, and we're starting, Heidi and Alex, looking at what street trees are available in the Lebanon plant list and kind of using that as a guide. We're trying to put some natives in. You know, summers are getting hotter, so some Oregon oaks, some big leaf maples if we can find spots for them. So we're being sensitive to that, and we're always flexible in planting. We know there's always this balance between giving us some canopy and heat island protection, safety, security, maintenance, and all that. So we're open. Any other comments you may have on planting, get them through Brian to us, and we'll incorporate them.
Okay, I think there may be some changes on that street tree list that's coming soon, at least one, so just know that. And I appreciate a landscape architect that's thinking the way I want him to think, so thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, everyone.
all your feedback.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and as they're finishing up, we're going to go right to the street tree list update. Linda, you had a proposal on that, and I think this is going to be easy.
Should I can close out, I guess?
Yes, we have on the list Paul, oh, sorry. We have on the list Paul Scarlett Hawthorne. And when we were planting the trees on William Street, we thought it would be better to use Crimson Cloud Hawthorne because it was available from the nursery. And I'd read that Paul Scarlett is, and this is a quote from Oregon State University, very susceptible to rust, hawthorn leaf spot, and blight, and this may cause the tree to nearly defoliate in late June or July. And then in this email that I sent you, I printed a paragraph from Mount from Urban Forest Nursery in Mount Vernon, Washington, which I'll read if you don't mind. The crimson cloud hawthorn is another great tree to put in your arsenal of small, tough, colorful landscape varieties. Of greatest significance is the fact that it's the perfect substitute for the very problematic Paul's scarlet hawthorn. Do not consider using Paul's scarlet unless you want defoliated trees by early August. The crimson cloud hawthorn is resistant to the leaf blight that afflicts the Paul's scarlet hawthorn. The crimson cloud is similar in size and form, and the flowers are equal, if not superior, to the Paul's scarlet. Although the flowers might be small, they are plentiful and spectacular in color, detail, and fragrance. Oh, the fragrance. This hawthorn is thornless, which is really nice. The ultimate size is around 25 feet tall by 20 feet wide. We have found them to be fairly easy to transplant, and they are somewhat drought tolerant. This tree becomes tougher with age, and I predict it to be a long-lived tree in favorable conditions. The crimson cloud hawthorn is one more example of a little-known and underused tough urban tree that more folks should consider.
So I spoke with the current city forester in Albany, and I am the old city forester in Albany, and we think it's a great idea. So whatever, is there any discussion on it? That's all.
Adding this tree to the list?
Adding that tree to the list?
Yeah, and taking off
Taking
Paul's,
the other one?
taking off Paul's scarlet.
Yeah, they're both hawthorns, which hawthorns are good trees, but
Sure.
so. Any thoughts or,
Makes sense to me.
okay, do we need to do it? I don't think we need to do a move, just a recommendation that we make that change. It's an easy change and a good change. Thank you, Linda, for keeping an eye on that kind of stuff. North Shore Trail, are we doing good? Can we just roll through the end, or do we need to take a 5-minute break?
Let's just pound through it.
Pound through it, okay. North Shore Trail Bank repairs. Who's got that?
That's me. So that was the update I provided. Talked to Albany, Chris Bailey,
Okay.
and she wants to have a meeting, Rob Emmons and Scott and herself and I, to discuss the next step. I'm waiting for them to reach out for that meeting, but they understand and they want to see something done as well. So I did offer, I just want to get it repaired before we lose something major. So I offered that we would do the work. I think that helped the discussion a little bit.
And I was out there a couple days ago and just took pictures. So if anybody after the meeting wants to see what it currently looks like, there's like 4 or 5 spots.
Yep.
A couple of them that weren't bad or getting pretty bad pretty quickly. Well, and I'm kind of surprised it looks like it's escalating. So thank you for looking into that,
Absolutely.
for offering to do the work. And I know you know a pretty good excavator operator who
We'll find
volunteered.
somebody.
Okay. BLT update.
I've got just a few things for you. One is I think the group knows that we went to city council and asked for a waiver of the fees at Cheadle Park, and the council explained to us exactly why they could not approve our appeal, and most of it has to do with it's a budget crisis, and the general fund is the crisis, and parks are in the general fund. I got to tell you, after the meeting, I was contacted by Dave Workman, one of the city councilors, and he's actually offering to help fund, not completely fund, but pretty generous part of the funding for that permit. So good things come from asking questions so often. The other thing I want to talk about is the Georgia Pacific Mill Race Trail, and as I told you before, we were going to the we had applied for a conditional use permit to build the trail, and it was approved by the Lynn County Planning Department, and then an organization called NIMBY, N-I-M-B-Y LLC, took that, appealed that, and so we went in front of the Lynn County commissioners, planning committee, and after more public input and review, then they approved our conditional use permit again. Now, they Yeah, 14 days after they actually gave us the notice, which the 14 days is going to be on the 24th. That's the last chance for anybody that was involved with hearings to appeal to the Lynn County Commissioners, and there's a $2,000 fee for that. We don't think that's going to happen because Linda LaRoque, that's part of the LLC, the NIMBY, said in the meetings they weren't going to appeal, but that's, a long time ago. So that's it's a big date coming up. And then tonight at 6 o'clock in this room, Laura LaRoque has asked for an administrative review of several of the planning commission, the planning code, Lebanon Building Code, or whatever it's called. And so it's the same question. It's whether you can build recreational trails in the residential low density zone. There's already been an administrative review that LaRoque, or actually it was NIMBY, I think, asked for the city to review the code, and they did an answer, and the administrative review was that you can build trails, we're going to build them. So this is just another attempt to slow down, or we're not really quite sure that they're appealing all of the trail. So Bill Lemon Trails plans are to start building as soon as we can. Udell Engineering is getting closer to having us a design, and we're going to start building. So that's all good news, I think. We talked a little bit about graffiti, and we only had one last month, but the month before we had one of our interpretive signs was busted. Pretty hard to do. I mean, it's thick plastic. They had to, I don't know how they did it.
They're amazing.
Something. They got some big ants or something crawling around here.
Really amazing.
So tomorrow we're going to pick up the sign. We've got a brand new sign made at Arts Plus Signs and Designs. They did the originals. We're going to pick that up and get it installed.
It was the one on the old mill trail that told about the mills that were in that area. And they think probably somebody just really hit it hard and it separated. I mean, it isn't real noticeable, but we certainly notice it. So BLT is going to pay $85 to get a new one there.
Anything else, Jan, you can think of to update?
You can tell about the work party we had that we put 2 trees in at Gill's Landing, and thank you so much for putting those holes. Oh, that was nice. The city dug the holes for us and put two trees there, and also a sign that says River Park this way and Old Mill Trail this way. It's double-sided.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me, Jason, so good of you guys to bring out that Vector and dig those holes. I mean, our crew's not getting any younger, and that sped that project up. I mean, we would have spent hours out there, and then instead, a couple hours, we actually had a chance to go trim ivy off a whole bunch more trees at Gill's Landing.
Great.
So almost all of the trees from the edge of Gill's Landing all the way through River Park, with a few exceptions, but not many, have had the English ivy degirthed off of the 3 foot of those trails. Well, we'll do more to make sure we get them all, but some of them were a little hard to get to. We want to wait till the water levels kind of drop down and the banks get a little drier.
I have a question, Rod. Have you found sponsors for the 3 benches on the south side of Cheeto Lake?
Yes, and the concrete's going to get poured pretty soon. I think Drew Breeze from Custom Concrete went out and looked and said his crews are going to be able to form those up pretty soon.
Yeah. We have a list of 3 people that request benches, but what Thad Nelson is the bench guru. And so he contacts them to see if they want that position of a bench or not. So the one that was just put at Gill's Landing was just, it was just one of these wonderful things that happen. If you're religious, you'd say it was a God thing. The gal wanted it. She said, yeah, I'll take that bench at Gill's Landing. And when Thad took a picture of the bench and across the big red barn of the Habians, the relatives used to live in that house. And so it was just like, that's where that bench should be. And her name is Jody Garber, and she was ecstatic. Her son overdosed along with several others. And if you bring up the name, you can see the literature in the newspapers about it. It was so sad. I mean, great kids, you know, religion, well, good families, and 3 or 4 of them overdosed about the same time within a couple years' time. So anyway, that was a good thing for that bench. So we'll decide, or I guess the people that are on the list will decide if they want the benches at Cheadle or not.
Yeah, I don't know who's on the list. That takes care of that list. And then we have, a few other benches that are going to be going in River Park with the River Park project. And then, of course, there's 2, I think, for the Georgia Pacific Mill Race Trail. 1? 2, yeah. So, and that's in the near future, those will be going in.
And 3 in River Park.
Yeah.
When that trail gets done.
Okay, anything else from anybody on the committee? Public comments?
Hello?
Don't see any.
You know,
Next
I,
sta-
I have a little comment.
Okay.
So we had 4 people here and there was one that wasn't here. So is that going to use up all the 2.4 million of that grant? All I could think it was ka-ching, ka-ching. That's a lot of personnel and a lot of expertise and.
It's kind of how you have to do it, because
Is it?
different people have different expertise, yeah.
One of the biggest reasons we're not putting a building in. Just the architect was 38 grand just to design.
Yeah,
And with public building, you just got to make sure that it's done correctly.
yeah. Right. Yeah, and people are going to have the question, because a lot of what they're doing, you're not, other than the stage, you're not going to be able to see. It's not going to be an obvious improvement after spending the money, but it has to be done, and it has to be done for later too. So any other comments?
Well, that's just a beautiful stage.
Yeah. Okay. No more? Okay, next scheduled meeting is March 19th from 2 to 3.
We need to move that or cancel March. That is our budget committee meeting, so we'll need this room.
Okay. Do we want to cancel it at this point? Do we have anything that we know is coming up that's,
I won't be here either.
Oh, it's
Okay.
definitely canceled then.
Yeah, Jason.
so what about planning on canceling it? And then if something comes up, we can set something up. How's that sound? Yeah. We got a lot done today. Okay, thank you. You are adjourned.
Thank you.